The submersible's lights flickered weakly against the crushing darkness of the Challenger deep. Dr. Sarah Chen squinted at her instruments, her brow furrowed in concentration. At 10,916 meters below the surface, she was quite literally at the bottom of the world. Oxygen levels stable, hull integrity holding. She muttered into her recorder. Wait a second. What's that? A faint blue glow pulsed in the murky distance, unlike anything she'd seen in her years of deep-sea exploration. Sarah's heart raced as she maneuvered the sub closer, her scientific curiosity overriding any sense of caution. As she approached, the glow intensified, seeming to ripple and shift in impossible ways. Her instruments went haywire, needles spinning and screens flashing with garbled data. This is incredible, Sarah breathed, her dark eyes wide with wonder. It's almost as if. Her words were cut short as a brilliant flash of light engulfed the submersible. Sarah threw her arms up to shield her eyes, crying out in surprise and fear. The sub lurched violently, and for a terrifying moment, she was certain the hull would breach. When the light faded, Sarah lowered her arms, blinking away the spots in her vision. What she saw made her jaw drop in disbelief. Gone was the oppressive darkness of the ocean depths. Instead, she found herself in a vast, otherworldly chamber. The walls, if they could be called that, seemed to shift and ripple like liquid metal. Soft, ambient light emanated from everywhere and nowhere at once. Sarah's mind reeled, struggling to process the impossible change in her surroundings. She reached for the submersible's hatch, her training warring with her instincts. After a moment's hesitation, she pushed it open. To her amazement, there was no rush of water. The air, if it was air, felt thick and slightly electric against her skin as she cautiously climbed out of the sub. "Hello," she called out, her voice sounding strangely muffled in the alien environment. "Is anyone there?" As if in response, the far wall of the chamber began to undulate more intensely. Sarah watched, transfixed, as it parted like a curtain, revealing a sight that nearly stopped her heart. 3 towering figures glided into the room. They were easily 4 meters tall, with bodies that seemed to be composed of swirling, iridescent mist. Where faces should have been, there were only pulsing orbs of light. Sarah stumbled backward, her back pressing against the cool metal of her submersible. Her mind raced through possibilities, a hallucination brought on by oxygen deprivation. Some sort of elaborate hoax. One of the beings moved forward, extending what might have been an arm. A voice resonated in Sarah's mind, bypassing her ears entirely. "Sarah Chen of Earth," it said, the words carrying a weight of ancient wisdom and unfathomable power. "We are the arbiters. You have been chosen." Sarah swallowed hard, forcing herself to stand straighter despite her trembling legs. Chosen? For what? The being's light pulsed brighter. "To stand trial for your species. The fate of humanity rests in your hands." A holographic display materialized in the center of the chamber, showing scenes from Earth's history. Sarah watched in horror as images of war, environmental destruction, and human cruelty flashed by in rapid succession. "We have observed your kind for millennia," another arbiter said, its mental voice tinged with disappointment. "And we have found you wanting. You squander your potential, poisoning your world and each other with your greed and short-sightedness." The third arbiter moved closer, its presence making the air crackle with energy. "However, there are those among us who believe humanity may yet prove worthy of existence. Thus, we have brought you here, Sarah Chen. You will face our trials. Should you fail, your species will be erased, your potential reclaimed for the cosmos." Sarah's mind reeled, the magnitude of the situation threatening to overwhelm her. But as the initial shock began to fade, a spark of defiance ignited within her. "Wait just a minute," she said, surprised by the steadiness in her voice. "You can't just abduct me and declare yourself judge, jury, and executioner for my entire species. We may have our flaws, but we also have greatness within us. Our capacity for love, for innovation, for overcoming impossible odds. pretty words, the first arbiter interrupted. But words alone will not save you. Prepare yourself, Sarah Chen. The trial begins now. Before Sarah could protest further, the chamber dissolved around her in a whirl of light and color. As the world remade itself, one thought echoed in her mind. The fate of humanity now rested squarely on her shoulders. Sarah's vision swam as the swirling lights coalesced into a new reality. She found herself standing on a circular platform, suspended in what appeared to be the vastness of space. Galaxies and nebulae spiraled lazily around her, their cosmic dance both beautiful and terrifying in its enormity. The arbiters materialized before her, their forms seeming to blend with the starry backdrop. The platform beneath Sarah's feet hummed to life, and a shimmering force field sprang up around its perimeter. Behold, the lead arbiter's voice resonated in her mind, the tapestry of human history. The space around them erupted into a dizzying array of holographic images. Sarah watched, awestruck, as scenes from Earth's past played out in vivid detail. She saw the rise and fall of ancient civilizations, great works of art and architecture springing into existence, only to crumble moments later. Your species has shown remarkable creativity and resilience, one arbiter conceded. But then the images shifted, growing darker. Wars raged across the holographic landscape. Forests fell to make way for sprawling cities. Oceans turned black with oil spills. Sarah's heart sank as she witnessed the destruction humanity had wrought upon itself and the planet. Yet for all your advancements, you teeter on the brink of self-annihilation, another arbiter intoned. Why should such a species be allowed to continue? Sarah took a deep breath, forcing herself to think past the overwhelming spectacle. You're not showing the whole picture, she argued. Yes, we've made mistakes, terrible ones. But that's not all we are. With a gesture, she manipulated the holographic display, surprising even herself with her newfound ability. Images of scientific breakthroughs, humanitarian efforts, and environmental conservation projects sprang to life around them. This is also humanity, Sarah said, her voice growing stronger. We learn, we adapt, we strive to be better. The lead arbiter's light pulsed, a hint of curiosity in its mental voice. You speak of potential, yet we see mostly squandered opportunities. How can you justify the continued existence of a species that knowingly destroys its own habitat? Sarah's mind raced, drawing on her years of scientific study and her deep love for Earth's oceans. Because we're finally starting to understand the consequences of our actions, she replied. Look at the progress we've made in renewable energy, in cleaning up our oceans, in preserving endangered species. She brought forth more images, wind farms dotting coastlines, massive ocean cleanup efforts, thriving nature preserves. We're not perfect, far from it. But we're learning, and we're trying to correct our course. The arbiters conferred silently, their lights pulsing in patterns Sarah couldn't decipher. Finally, the lead arbiter spoke again. Words and images are easy to manipulate, Sarah Chen. If humanity is truly worthy of continuation, you must prove it through action. The cosmic courtroom began to fade, the starry expanse giving way to a new environment. Sarah felt a chill run down her spine as a harsh landscape materialized around her. Your trial begins now, the arbiter's voice echoed as its form dissipated. You will face challenges that will test your intellect, your adaptability, and your moral fiber. The fate of your species hangs in the balance. As the last traces of the cosmic courtroom vanished, Sarah found herself standing on the outskirts of a city engulfed in flames. The heat was oppressive, and thick smoke choked the air. In the distance, she could hear screams of terror and the ominous rumble of collapsing buildings. A heads-up display flickered to life before her eyes, outlining objectives and providing cryptic hints about the challenges ahead. Sarah's mind reeled, but she forced herself to focus. This wasn't just about her survival anymore. The future of humanity was at stake. Taking a deep breath of the acrid air, Sarah steeled herself for what lay ahead. All right, she muttered, eyeing the burning cityscape. Let's show these arbiters what humanity is really made of. With determination in her steps, Sarah Chen walked into the inferno, ready to face whatever trials the arbiters had in store, for herself and for the fate of her entire species. The heat hit Sarah like a physical blow as she entered the burning city. Sweat beaded on her forehead, evaporating almost instantly in the scorching air. The heads-up display before her eyes flickered with information. Temperature readings, air quality warnings, and a ticking clock counting down from 60 minutes. Save as many as you can, the arbiter's voice echoed in her mind. But remember, every action has consequences. Sarah's scientific mind kicked into high gear, analyzing the situation. The fire seemed to behave oddly, spreading in patterns that defied natural laws. This was no ordinary blaze. It was a test, designed to push her to her limits. A scream pierced the air, cutting through the roar of the flames. Sarah sprinted toward the sound, navigating through debris-strewn streets. She found a group of holographic civilians trapped in a collapsing building, the entrance blocked by a fallen beam. Without hesitation, Sarah searched for a solution. Her eyes landed on a nearby fire hydrant. Of course, she muttered, rushing to it. Using a piece of debris as leverage, she managed to open the hydrant, directing the powerful stream of water to douse the flames around the entrance. As the steam cleared, Sarah called out, "This way." "Hurry." The holograms rushed past her to safety, their faces etched with gratitude. But there was no time to celebrate. The clock was ticking, and more cries for help echoed through the inferno. For what felt like hours, Sarah raced through the city, solving one life-threatening puzzle after another. She redirected gas lines to prevent explosions, created makeshift bridges to reach stranded survivors, and used her knowledge of fire behavior to predict and prevent the blaze's spread. Just as she thought she had a handle on the situation, the arbiter's voice rang out again. "Choices, Sarah Chen. Not all can be saved. Who will you prioritize?" To her horror, Sarah saw two buildings engulfed in flames simultaneously. One was a hospital, the other a research facility containing vital scientific data. The heads-up display showed she only had time to save one. Sarah's mind raced. The hospital contained more lives, but the research facility might hold information crucial to preventing future disasters. It was an impossible choice, one that would haunt her no matter what she decided. In a split-second decision, Sarah ran toward the hospital. Knowledge can be regained, she thought, but lives lost are gone forever. She worked tirelessly, guiding patients and staff to safety until the last second ticked away on her clock. As the final survivor reached safety, the burning city shimmered and dissolved around her. Sarah fell to her knees, exhausted and covered in soot, her lungs burning from the smoke. But there was no time to rest. The scorching heat vanished, replaced by a bone-chilling cold that cut through her like a knife. Sarah found herself on a vast ice sheet, with nothing but frozen tundra stretching to the horizon in every direction. Her breath frosted in the air as the heads-up display reset, giving her new objectives and another ticking clock. "Survive," the arbiter commanded. "Demonstrate your species' resourcefulness in the face of nature's harshest conditions." Sarah hugged herself, shivering violently as she took stock of her new environment. The ice beneath her feet creaked ominously, and in the distance she could hear the howl of Arctic winds. Drawing on her knowledge of polar expeditions and survival techniques, Sarah knew her first priority was shelter. She spotted a nearby ice formation and began to dig, using her hands at first, then fashioning crude tools from ice and compacted snow. As she worked, her scientific mind never stopped analyzing. The shifting aurora in the sky hinted at electromagnetic anomalies. The patterns in the ice suggested hidden dangers, and perhaps hidden resources. "Okay, Sarah," she muttered to herself, her words visible in the freezing air. "You've studied Earth's most extreme environments. Time to put that knowledge to the test." With frostbitten fingers and an indomitable will, Sarah continued to work. As an igloo slowly took shape before her, she allowed herself a small smile. The trial of fire had tested her courage and quick thinking. Now, in this frozen wasteland, she would prove humanity's endurance and adaptability. The arbiters watched unseen, their judgment yet to be passed, as Sarah Chen fought not just for her own survival, but for the future of her entire species. The transition was jarring. One moment, Sarah was battling Arctic winds. The next, she was plunged into an alien ocean. The icy chill gave way to an oppressive, crushing pressure that threatened to overwhelm her senses. Sarah instinctively held her breath before realizing she could somehow breathe the dense liquid surrounding her. Her eyes adjusted to the dim, ethereal light emanating from bioluminescent organisms drifting through the alien sea. The heads-up display flickered to life once more, outlining her new objective. Navigate the abyss. Survive its terrors. Prove your worth. Sarah's marine biology background kicked into high gear as she took in her surroundings. The ocean was unlike anything she ever studied on Earth. Massive, undulating fronds of what appeared to be living crystal swayed in unseen currents. Schools of creatures she could only describe as flying jellyfish pulsed by, their translucent bodies refracting the bioluminescent light. As she began to swim, Sarah noticed her body had been altered to withstand the immense pressure. Webbing between her fingers and toes aided her movement, and gill-like slits along her ribcage filtered oxygen from the water. Suddenly, a high-pitched shriek pierced the water. Sarah whirled to see a massive, eel-like predator charging towards her, its maw lined with rows of gleaming teeth. Her heart raced as she quickly assessed her options. Drawing on her knowledge of marine predator behavior, Sarah remained still until the last possible moment. As the creature lunged, she propelled herself upward, using the beast's own momentum against it. The eel thing crashed into a crystalline formation, momentarily stunned. Sarah didn't waste the opportunity. She swam hard, using the complex topography of the alien sea to put distance between herself and the predator. As she navigated through a forest of towering, pulsating pillars, Sarah's scientific mind never stopped analyzing. She noticed patterns in the bioluminescent displays of smaller creatures, realizing they were using light to communicate. By observing and mimicking these patterns, Sarah found she could repel some threats and attract helpful swarms of tiny, cleaner-like organisms. Hours seemed to pass as Sarah delved deeper into the abyss. She faced and overcame challenge after challenge, evading camouflaged ambush predators, navigating through fields of poisonous, anemone-like growths, and solving puzzles presented by the very geography of this alien ocean. Just as Sarah thought she was getting a handle on this strange environment, everything changed. The ocean floor dropped away into a yawning chasm, plunging her into near-total darkness. Her heads-up display crackled with interference, offering only intermittent guidance. As Sarah cautiously descended into the trench, she became aware of a massive presence below. Something was moving in the darkness, something big. Flashes of bioluminescence revealed glimpses of tentacles larger than redwood trees, undulating slowly in the abyss. Sarah's scientific curiosity warred with her survival instinct. This creature was clearly the apex predator of this alien ocean, capable of crushing her without effort. And yet, as she observed its movements, she noticed something odd. The behemoth seemed to be in distress, its movements erratic and pained. Squinting through the gloom, Sarah spotted the problem. A jagged shard of crystalline material was lodged in what appeared to be a sensory organ, causing the creature obvious agony. Swarms of smaller predators circled, drawn by the giant's distress, waiting for an opportunity to strike. Sarah faced a split-second decision. The safest course of action would be to slip by unnoticed while the massive creature was distracted. Her chances of survival would be much higher if she avoided any interaction with this alien leviathan. But as she watched the creature thrash in pain, Sarah felt a pang of empathy. This wasn't just a mindless beast. It was a living, feeling being, and it was suffering. "Damn it," Sarah muttered, steeling her resolve. "I didn't come this far to abandon my principles now." With a powerful kick, She propelled herself towards the wounded giant. As she approached, the creature's massive eye, easily the size of a baseball field, focused on her. In that moment of connection, Sarah felt the weight of her decision. Her next actions could mean life or death, not just for herself, but potentially for her entire species. Taking a deep breath of the alien water, Sarah reached out towards the wounded Leviathan, hoping her compassion wouldn't be her downfall. As Sarah approached the wounded Leviathan, its massive eye locked onto her. She could sense its pain, fear, and confusion radiating through the water. Slowly, she raised her hands in a non-threatening gesture, projecting calm thoughts as if the creature could somehow sense her intentions. "Easy there, big guy," she murmured, the words bubbling strangely in the dense liquid. "I'm here to help." The creature's tentacles writhed, creating powerful currents that threatened to sweep Sarah away. She fought against the turbulence, inching closer to the crystalline shard embedded in what she now recognized as a complex sensory organ. Drawing on her experience with injured marine life, Sarah knew she had to work quickly. The longer the shard remained, the more damage it would cause, and the greater the risk of attracting more predators. With careful movements, she reached for the shard. The Leviathan shuddered, causing Sarah to pause. "It's okay," she soothed, not sure if her words meant anything to the alien being. "This is going to hurt, but it'll feel better soon." In one swift motion, Sarah grasped the shard and pulled. The creature let out a deafening psychic scream that reverberated through the water, momentarily disorienting her. But the shard was out, dissolving into the water like salt. For a tense moment, Sarah feared she had made a terrible mistake. The Leviathan's tentacles coiled around her, not crushing, but holding her in place. Its massive eye studied her with an intelligence that sent shivers down her spine. Then, gradually, the tentacles relaxed. A soft, pulsing bioluminescence spread across the creature's skin, a display Sarah interpreted as relief, maybe even gratitude. The eye blinked once, slowly, before the Leviathan began to sink back into the depths. As it descended, one tentacle gently deposited Sarah onto a rocky outcropping. She watched in awe as the massive being disappeared into the gloom, leaving her alone once more in the alien abyss. Or so she thought. A flicker of movement caught her eye. From a crevice in the rocks emerged a smaller creature, roughly the size of an octopus, but with a body that seemed to shift and change color like a cuttlefish. Its eyes, surprisingly similar to human eyes, regarded Sarah with unmistakable curiosity. "Well, hello there," Sarah said, fascinated by this new entity. "Aren't you an interesting little fella?" The creature, which Sarah decided to call Abyss, inched closer, its skin rippling with patterns of light. Sarah realized it was attempting to communicate using bioluminescence, much like the smaller creatures she had encountered earlier. Drawing on her observations, Sarah attempted to respond, using her hands to create shadows and patterns in the ambient light. It was a crude method, but to her amazement, Abyss seemed to understand. Over the next few hours, Sarah and Abyss developed a rudimentary form of communication. Through a combination of light patterns, gestures, and intuition, they began to share information about their respective worlds. Sarah learned that Abyss was also an outsider in this environment, a being from another part of the alien ocean, trapped here by the same forces that had brought her. Together, they faced the challenges of the Abyss, their unique skills complementing each other in unexpected ways. Abyss could change its body density at will, helping them navigate strong currents. Its chromatophores could create dazzling light displays, disorienting predators or attracting helpful swarms of smaller creatures. Sarah contributed her problem-solving skills and scientific knowledge, analyzing their surroundings and devising strategies for survival. As they traversed the alien seascape, Sarah felt a growing bond with Abyss. It wasn't just a tool for survival or a subject of study. It was becoming a friend, a partner in this strange adventure. But just as Sarah was beginning to feel confident in their partnership, disaster struck. A massive tremor shook the ocean floor, kicking up clouds of sediment that blinded them. In the chaos, Sarah felt abyss being torn away from her by a powerful current. As the water cleared, Sarah found herself alone, surrounded by a completely changed environment. Jagged crevices had opened up in the seabed, releasing plumes of superheated water that created a maze of thermal currents. Abyss was nowhere to be seen. Sarah's heart raced. Had the arbiters separated them on purpose? Was this another test? Or had she inadvertently put Abyss in danger by involving it in her trials? As doubt and fear crept in, Sarah forced herself to focus. She had come too far to give up now. Whether this was part of the test or not, she had to find Abyss, not just for the sake of her own survival or to prove humanity's worth, but because it was the right thing to do. With determination in her eyes, Sarah set off into the transformed Abyss, calling out to Abyss with every light pattern and gesture she could muster. The true test, she realized, might not be just about survival, but about loyalty, compassion, and the bonds we forge in the face of adversity. The alien seascape shuddered around Sarah as she desperately searched for Abyss. Thermal vents erupted unpredictably, creating a chaotic maze of currents and near-boiling water. Her heads-up display flickered erratically, offering only fragments of information. Abyss, Sarah called out, using a combination of vocalizations and light patterns. Where are you? A distant rumble drew her attention. To her horror, she saw the boundaries of this underwater world beginning to dissolve. The very fabric of reality seemed to be unraveling at the edges. Suddenly, the arbiters' voices boomed through the water, their tone urgent and almost concerned. Sarah Chen of Earth, your trial has concluded. The judgment is. Their words were cut off by a deafening crack. A fissure split the ocean floor, releasing a plume of molten material. Sarah realized with growing dread that this wasn't just the end of the trial. The entire constructed reality was collapsing. Wait, Sarah shouted. What about Abyss? I can't leave without. A familiar ripple of bioluminescence caught her eye. Abyss emerged from behind a rocky outcropping, its skin pulsing with patterns that Sarah recognized as distress and fear. Without hesitation, Sarah swam towards her alien companion. As she reached out, the water around them began to swirl violently. The arbiters' voices returned, overlapping and discordant. Unexpected anomaly. System failure. Evacuation protocols. Sarah grabbed hold of Abyss, pulling the creature close as the world spun around them. Hold on, she yelled, unsure if Abyss could understand. Whatever happens, we stick together. Reality fractured. Sarah and Abyss found themselves tumbling through a kaleidoscope of environments. Fragments of the burning city, flashes of the ice world, glimpses of the cosmic courtroom. Each shard of reality lasted only seconds before giving way to the next. Through it all, Sarah maintained her grip on Abyss. She could feel the creature's fear and confusion mirroring her own. But there was something else too, a sense of trust, of solidarity in the face of chaos. As they fell through the disintegrating layers of the trial worlds, Sarah's scientific mind kicked into overdrive. She began to notice patterns in the chaos, rhythms in the fluctuations of reality around them. It's like a current, she realized. We can ride it out. Using techniques she learned navigating ocean currents, Sarah began to guide their descent. She used Abyss's ability to change density to their advantage, allowing them to surf the waves of collapsing reality. Their wild journey seemed to last both an eternity and mere seconds. Finally, with a thunderous crack, they burst through a last barrier and found themselves floating in the inky blackness of the Mariana Trench. Sarah's relief at returning to Earth was short-lived. They were still miles underwater, faced with crushing pressure and total darkness. Her heads-up display was gone, along with all the physical adaptations the arbiters had given her for the trials. Panic threatened to overwhelm her, but a gentle pulse from Abyss brought her back to her senses. The alien creature began to glow softly, providing just enough light to see by. Sarah took stock of their situation. They were alive, against all odds. But they were also trapped in one of the most inhospitable environments on Earth, with no clear way to the surface. As if sensing her thoughts, Abyss changed its shape, forming a kind of protective bubble around Sarah. She realized it was using its ability to withstand extreme pressures to shield her. "Okay," Sarah said, her voice shaky but determined. "We've made it this far. Let's get to the surface and show those arbiters what we're really made of." With Abyss's bioluminescence lighting the way, they began their ascent. Sarah used her knowledge of ocean currents and underwater geography to guide them, while Abyss provided protection and propulsion. As they rose through the lightless depths, Sarah's mind raced. What would they find on the surface? Had the Arbiter's judgment been passed? Was humanity safe, or had she somehow failed the trial? One thing was certain. She was returning with far more than she'd left with. In Abyss, she had found not just a survival partner, but a bridge between worlds. Whatever challenges awaited them on the surface, they would face them together. The first faint glimmers of sunlight began to penetrate the gloom above. Sarah and Abyss ascended towards an uncertain future, carrying with them the potential to change humanity's understanding of life in the universe forever. The sun's rays pierced the water's surface as Sarah and Abyss emerged from the depths of the Mariana Trench. Sarah gasped, filling her lungs with sweet air for the first time in what felt like an eternity. Abyss rippled beside her, its chromatophores shifting in a dazzling display of colors as it experienced Earth's atmosphere. Their moment of peace was short-lived. The roar of helicopter rotors shattered the tranquility, and Sarah found herself squinting against the glare of searchlights. A voice boomed over a loudspeaker. "Dr. Sarah Chen, this is the United States Navy. Please remain calm. We're here to extract you." As a rescue diver splashed down nearby, Sarah realized the magnitude of what had happened. To the world, she had vanished without a trace during a deep-sea expedition. Her reappearance, with an alien creature, no less, was nothing short of miraculous. The next few hours passed in a blur. Sarah found herself whisked away to a naval vessel, subjected to a battery of medical tests and debriefings. All the while, she insisted on keeping Abyss close, fighting against those who viewed the alien with fear and suspicion. "It's not a threat," Sarah argued repeatedly. "Abyss saved my life. We need to protect it." Days blended into weeks as Sarah navigated a storm of government interrogations, media frenzies, and scientific inquiries. Her story of cosmic trials and alien arbiters was met with a mix of wonder, skepticism, and outright disbelief. Abyss became the center of a global sensation. Xenobiologists clamored for the chance to study the creature, while religious leaders debated the theological implications of its existence. Conspiracy theorists had a field day, spinning wild tales about secret government projects and alien invasions. Through it all, Sarah stood as a fierce advocate for Abyss and the potential for peaceful interspecies cooperation. She worked tirelessly with a team of scientists to develop better methods of communication with Abyss, building upon the rudimentary language they had developed in the alien ocean. But as Abyss revealed more of its incredible abilities, shape-shifting, pressure resistance, advanced bioluminescent communication, Sarah noticed a shift in how some viewed her alien friend. Where once there was curiosity, she now saw greed and calculation in the eyes of certain officials and corporate representatives. Late one night, as Sarah pored over data in the high-security lab that had become their home, alarms blared to life. The lights flickered, plunging the room into darkness before emergency power kicked in. "Abyss," Sarah called out, her heart racing. She rushed to the containment area where her friend was kept, only to find it empty, the reinforced glass shattered. Security footage revealed a team of black-clad operatives breaching the facility. Their movements were precise, their equipment advanced. This was no ragtag group of conspirators. It was a professional extraction team. As Sarah watched the footage of Abyss being loaded into a specialized container, a cold fury washed over her. She had faced the judgment of cosmic beings to protect humanity. She had survived impossible trials and forged a bond that transcended species. She would not let Abyss be turned into a lab experiment or a weapon. With grim determination, Sarah set to work. She reached out to trusted colleagues, called in favors from high-ranking officials who believed her story, and pieced together clues about Abyss's abductors. A pattern emerged, a shadow organization with tendrils in various governments and corporations. They had been watching, waiting for the perfect moment to seize Abyss for their own purposes. As dawn broke, Sarah found herself in a nondescript hotel room, surrounded by a makeshift team of allies. Ex-military personnel who had witnessed Abyss's peaceful nature, scientists who valued discovery over exploitation, and even a few conspiracy theorists whose paranoia had proven justified. "All right," Sarah addressed the group, her voice steady despite her exhaustion. "We know where they're holding Abyss. We have one shot at this. If we fail, we risk losing not just my friend, but potentially humanity's best chance at proving our worth to the cosmos." She looked each member of her team in the eye, seeing the same determination reflected back at her. "Let's bring Abyss home." As they moved out, Sarah couldn't help but wonder. Was this all part of the Arbiter's test? Or had humanity's penchant for conflict and greed already proven their judgment correct? Either way, she was prepared to fight, not just for Abyss, but for the promise of a better future that their friendship represented. The United Nations General Assembly Hall buzzed with anticipation. Delegates from every nation packed the chamber, their faces a mix of curiosity, skepticism, and barely concealed awe. At the podium stood Dr. Sarah Chen, her posture straight but tired, with Abyss floating serenely beside her in a specially designed aquarium. "Distinguished delegates," Sarah began, her voice steady despite her nerves, "I stand before you today, not just as a scientist, but as a witness to events that will reshape our understanding of the universe and our place within it." Over the next hour, Sarah recounted her extraordinary journey. She spoke of the cosmic trial, the challenges she faced, and the bond she formed with Abyss. As she talked, Abyss punctuated her words with dazzling displays of bioluminescence, drawing gasps from the assembled world leaders. But our return was just the beginning. Sarah continued, her tone growing more urgent. "The abduction of Abyss by those who sought to exploit its abilities shows that we still have much to learn. Yet our successful rescue proves that cooperation and compassion can triumph over greed and fear." She gestured to Abyss, whose shape shifted into a form resembling a DNA double helix. "Abyss has agreed to share its knowledge with us. Already, we've made breakthroughs in biotechnology, materials science, and environmental restoration that were unimaginable just months ago." Murmurs rippled through the crowd as Sarah activated a holographic display. It showed a massive ocean cleanup operation, with devices clearly inspired by Abyss's biology efficiently filtering microplastics and pollutants from the water. "But this is just the beginning," Sarah declared. "Abyss has shown us glimpses of technologies that could revolutionize our approach to climate change, energy production, and space exploration. However, we must proceed with caution and wisdom. The Arbiter's judgment of humanity is ongoing. Our actions now will determine not just our fate, but potentially the fate of countless other species across the cosmos." As Sarah concluded her speech, the assembly hall erupted into a standing ovation. The next few hours were a flurry of resolutions and declarations. A new international body was proposed to oversee the ethical application of Abyss-inspired technologies. Treaties were drafted to protect Abyss and any future extraterrestrial visitors. Global initiatives for environmental restoration and sustainable development were given unprecedented funding and support. But as the day wound down, Sarah felt a familiar tug of intuition. She and Abyss slipped away from the celebrating diplomats, making their way to the shores of the East River. Under the fading light of dusk, Abyss began to glow with an intensity Sarah had never seen before. Patterns danced across its skin, forming complex equations and diagrams. With a start, Sarah realized she was looking at a star map, one that showed Earth's location in the galaxy with pinpoint accuracy. "They're still watching us, aren't they?" Sarah murmured. Abyss pulsed in confirmation. As if in response, the water before them began to churn. A familiar, otherworldly light emanated from beneath the surface. Sarah held her breath as a shimmering portal opened, revealing a glimpse of the cosmic courtroom where her trial had begun. The voice of the arbiters resonated in her mind. "Sarah Chen of Earth, your species stands at a crossroads. The choices you make in the coming years will determine whether you ascend to join the galactic community or remain isolated, a potential threat to yourselves and others." Sarah straightened her spine, meeting the challenge in the arbiter's tone. "We're ready," she declared. "We've seen what we're capable of, both the good and the bad. But we choose to strive for better, to learn, to grow. We choose to face the future not with fear, but with hope and determination." The portal shimmered, the arbiter's presence fading. But before it closed completely, Sarah caught a glimpse of something that made her heart race. Other beings, countless species gathered in that cosmic expanse, watching Earth with newfound interest. As the last light of the portal winked out, Sarah turned to Abyss. Her alien friend rippled with patterns that she now recognized as excitement and anticipation. "Well, partner," Sarah said, a smile spreading across her face. "Looks like our next adventure is just beginning. Shall we show the universe what humanity and Abyss can do together?" Abyss pulsed brightly in agreement. As they made their way back to the UN, Sarah's mind raced with possibilities. The road ahead would be challenging, filled with trials perhaps even greater than those she had already faced. But with Abyss at her side, and the potential of humanity driving her forward, Sarah Chen was ready to lead Earth into a new era of cosmic exploration and understanding. The ripple effect of her journey was just beginning, and its waves would soon reach the farthest corners of the galaxy.